Firstly, on the Friday night, we have the Highlanders versus the Chefs. It's going to be no new injuries, I don't think. Is that right? In either the Highlanders or the Chiefs camp.
As far as I know, yep.
Except for I'm assuming surely there's something wrong with
You get it too.
Miguel too, because that just hurts too much otherwise. I would say there is one late one. Sorry, Brody Retallick misses out this week with a groin strain, so he's out. And Eteni Nanai Saturo is also not in the squad, but we don't really know if that's rotation or if there's actually an injury there. Nothing's been named online. Returning, we got Billy Harmon coming back to captain the side from personal reasons. You got Martin Bagato, I believe, is fit now, but he hasn't been picked in the 23 now that it's come out. So I suspect that he's actually just not being selected at the moment. Then you got Josh Dixon coming back from family bereavement. He's back on the bench this week as well.
Yeah, interesting one. I think he's a really important part of what the Highlanders need. Fabian Holland brings in, really good line out and even locking lock. And I think between him and Dixon, that strengthens a significant weakness for them. But yeah, we're going to see him off the bench.
Yep, and then the last ones you had Anton Leonard-Brown finally back from his round one ankle sprain, straight into the starting jersey, which I love. And Alex Nankervel is back on the bench after a concussion way back in round 5. It blows my mind that it's been that long that those two have been out for, and they've been doing so well. Daniel Rona has been a standout. So is Boy Hippie. So the depth those guys have at centers is just ridiculous.
And seemingly not from nowhere, but seemingly from nowhere with Rona. And you're talking
Well,
Poy yes.
he's a tradie. He's working part-time. How
Yeah,
the hell
no,
he's
but
got
I
the
mean,
fitness to just come in and get up to speed and play like that is outrageous.
and he's the one who's still starting this week. But Nankervel, we knew was good. He was a backup for them, but we knew he was as a weapon. Poy Hippie as well, very inexperienced in compared to Anton Leonard-Brown. But geez, this is looking like a class centre pairing. 4 or 5 options that can just put their hand up week in, week out. If anyone's missing, it doesn't matter. They don't miss a beat.
Yeah. The odds on this one, you got
Yeah.
the Chiefs as favourites 115 to the Landers at $5. The line is 13.5, so a couple of converted tries, and it's just whether or not Mackenzie kicks the conversion, basically, is it?
Yeah, it sounds like it, but I'm not sure what's the record that the Chiefs have beaten the Highlanders. Did that happen earlier this year? Because there was a
Oh,
trend happening for a while.
yeah, I can find that out very quickly for you because I think were they if they faced them round 3, they beat them by 21. It was 28-7, and that was not the record. I think it was like 23 or 24 points. Like it was
Just
around there. They were pretty close.
yeah. So look for the Chiefs to do that.
You're starting with the tip, are you?
Yeah, well, probably. I don't know. Like the Highlanders aren't last place. They're nowhere near the other Pacific Islander sides. In Moana, very last, and I think Ndrua might be coming 11th. But the Highlanders, it would be fun to call them the Sunlanders. That just sounds fun at the moment. The form they're in, even if it's not fully deserved.
Yeah, after their 1 point loss last week. Look, I think
Yeah.
what we learnt last week was Aaron Smith is just absolutely incredibly important to this side. He's obviously trying to peak for the World Cup this year because he will be the All Blacks starting 9. He essentially carried the team to within a whisker of beating the Tars last week, particularly when he drew a penalty, put a 40-20, a 50-22 across, then off that line out, managed to dart through and score himself. Like, it was just ridiculous. He's to be playing that well for as long as he has. He's an outrageous talent. And it's going to be really interesting to see him partner with Freddie Burns this week as well, who slots in at the 10 jersey. Hunt drops back to the bench. That's a pretty experienced 9-10 option. So it'll be interesting to see if they can steer the team around with a bit more purpose than maybe what they have in the past.
Experience, but not cohesive. And then we're throwing in a couple other changes in the back line, and that adds a little bit of a concern for me. Scott Gregory, we're a fan of old Rosy Cheeks. Coming in at 11, you've got Connor Garden Bashop on the right wing, and then we've got Sam Gilbert shifting back to fullback. Hire had played, off and on throughout the year, hasn't been there the entirety of the year. There's not a lot of cohesion in that back line for me, especially when you're looking at that 9-10 combo. But there is class. There's a lot of talent there, and some of them are young. talked positives of Connor Garden-Bachop. Then we've looked at some of his matches in recent weeks and think that maybe he isn't up to it in terms of the standard of Super Rugby currently. But then he goes and pulls out a few really, really solid runs and looks pretty positive last week. So
I think you're pretty harsh there. I reckon if you dropped in Mitch Hunt in for 10 for Freddie Burns, I reckon that 6 to 15 is close to their most consistently picked side.
Well, I mean, if you look at Scott Gregory, no, that's obviously not true.
I mean, he's been injured, but he's been playing at that team for years at centre and wing. So it's not like he's new to the team.
Never played with Freddie Burns. Basically never played.
Basically, it's just Freddie Burns.
Basically, no. Higher, Thomas Jensen played a fair bit of 13 at points last year as well. Connor Garden-Bachop's been fullback, been wing. Sam Gilbert was centre last week. There is still chopping and changing.
Yeah, absolutely. So mainly positional changes, I think, as well. Interesting that Gilbert's just moved straight back to 15. I assume he played inside centre purely to give Taj a rest last week.
I think so, but we've also got No James Lowe as well. That's another one that's been there a fair bit that's dropped back out.
Yeah, well, he's played, I think, pretty much every minute of every game. I think he's a bigger mission. And again, I reckon that it's just a rotation now that they've got more fit legs, because there's been no word on an injury from him, and he's been kind of their Mr. consistent, solid winger as well. That's just kind of doing his role. So in the forward pack, you mentioned Will Tucker, Fabian Holland, who is a big boy and a talented young lock still in the side. And then in the front row, they stay with De Groot, Makaleo and Ainsley. I think that front row in particular is very strong. But the Chiefs have got an exceptional scrum as well. So I think their set piece is going to really struggle, but I do think the rest of their team should be able to match it a little bit closer than maybe in the past. There's just not enough strike power still there for me. I'm not sure how they can put enough points on the board. That's my biggest worry.
Yeah. I mean, they're going to really look for a lift later in the game with Nareki, Fakatava, Withy, Dixon, those guys sort of coming on towards the back end of the match. But I don't know how they turn it around. They do have talent and they have guys that can split the game open, but a lot of these players in that back line have not been consistently in form. Pyer, off and on, Garden-Bachop, off and on. Gilbert has been good and safe. Burns, we haven't seen lots of. Smith is in blistering form, but there is concerns. Thomas Jensen's been quiet for a lot of the season, has shown glimpses where he looks really, really good. So for me, I think this backline is going to have to step up massively, or it's going to be a tough ask for them.
Yeah, absolutely. On the Chiefs side of things, I guess the big news on their end is that Damien McKenzie has signed for a couple more years. So surely he ends up as the All Blacks 10 next year after the World Cup, if not this World Cup.
Mate,
Richie again last week.
He is in such good form. He is, honestly, Barrett's been pretty average this year, hasn't he?
Hot and cold. I wouldn't say average. I think he's actually warmed into the season, but he has been a bit hot and cold.
He's been very much a distributor at 10, not taking the ball to the line very much at all. D-Mac, you can put him at 10, you can put him at 15, and that bloke is running through the defence, creating gaps, everything around him. His versatility and how good he's playing at 10 is huge at the moment. And no, not many people would be putting him above Barrett, but he is looking good. So he's got that future jersey locked in.
Well, on the point of D-Mac, how do you actually feel the Highlanders try and stop him from dominating like he has been?
It's an interesting one. I mean, he does shift out to fullback at times or links with Sean Stevenson in D, and you'll find them both floating around towards the back. You've got to nullify both of those two players. You can't leave the ball in open play when you're kicking. It has to be high, it has to be short, and you have to have people on them. If you create any space or time in hand for those two players with the ball, you're asking for trouble.
Yeah, I think the counter-attack is huge. You have to take that away from them. And considering we've just said that the Highlanders' strength is not going to be their set piece, I don't think it's a good sign if they need to go to set piece to slow the game down, and they're not going to actually be that competitive there. Maybe there's a bit of an opportunity at line-out time with Brodie Retallick, the fantastic All Blacks lock not being there, but that does worry me. then I think the other one is you just have to find a way to stop D-Mac's quick ball. You can't just rush him. I believe it was a few weeks ago now, but I'd be surprised if it's changed, that he was the most kicking 10 in the competition. He's just got such an array of excellent short kicks. So if you rush him, he just puts a cute little chip kick in and the ball just inevitably bounces up for shooter Stevenson or Amoni Narawa, who just scores immediately because that's just what they do. And if you hold off on him, then he just runs and scores himself. So I don't know, is there any way to stop him at the moment?
The way you stop him is try to slow the ball getting to him. It's Frizzell, Harmon, Renton, Withy when he comes on to really slow that breakdown and be pests at that breakdown. I'm not sure who the ref is, but we have seen a lot of inconsistencies. We noticed it in the Waratahs match last week where refs are not policing the breakdown as consistently as you'd expect. So I would be trying to slow the ball down as much as possible early in this match and see how much of the boundaries you can push around that. Because if the ball's coming slow, your defence is set, it means it makes that little bit tougher on DMAC.
Yeah, absolutely. And Forsyth Bar Stadium, I should mention as well. So, I mean, there's always more points scored there. So this one could be a big score. What else? Obviously, we mentioned the change having ALB in the centre, which is going to make a big difference to them. Peniasi Mali gets a start on the left wing as well. They've got no outside backs on the bench. They've got Bryn Gatlin, Cordus Ratama, and Alex Nankervel. So I guess
they've used Nankervel plenty on the wing.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, very true. But I suspect that he's surely going to sub in for Daniel Rona and reunite the dream team, ALB and him.
You'd think so, but Penny Mali hasn't had a lot of game time. He's not young and he's not inexperienced, but he is at this level. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see Nankervel come in there if he's not really stepping up. Mali, if you look at his stats in the past, he's, NPC 66 tackle percentage last year. He is going to have his hands full at times throughout this match with some strong wingers. But
Connor Garden matchup to have a field day in fantasy points. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, he could do well, but it's
He'll
still
miss
going to
as
be
many as he makes.
He does miss a lot.
I got one more question for you on this one.
Directly when he comes on, at least.
One more question. Yep. They've still got Luke Jacobson at 8, Peter Gus at 6. Have you worked out why yet?
I have not worked out right. They seem to be the only team that hasn't realised that it is easier for an 8 to pick and run off the back of a scrum. Like, give the few teams a little bit longer, and you're probably going to have Cam Clark picking it up at number 8. You're going to have...
I know why. The only thing I can think is because Luke Jacobson's got a better long ball cut out straight to DMAC, so DMAC can just continue to score or set up a try with every touch of the ball. That's the only reason I can think.
Look, I wouldn't hate them putting DMAC at the back of the scrum so no one has to pass it to him. He just gets the ball quick. The middleman.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea. I can't wait to see someone do that. Surely like Corin Betty or something like that just needs, if these laws come through, like he's the perfect 8th man, isn't he, Corin Betty? He's got to score every time. How do you stop him?
You play him on the wing and you bring him in. There's nothing in the game to say you have to play your number 8 at the back of the scrum.
Exactly. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
I can't wait. Anyway, we digress. The tip, Nelson. So the line's 13.5. Which way are you going on this line?
I'm going the Chiefs to win by, just looking at the team, I'm going to say they're going to win by 20 points.
Ooh, I went 22. So we've gone 1 point either side of the last matchup. So you think Highlanders improved? I don't think they have.
No, I don't. I just... Anton Brown, old legs, tired, Mali.
That is blasphemy. Look, I just thought Forsyth Bar was worth 4 points. I was originally going to say 18. So Forsyth Bar, that's where dreams are made as a fan.
I just want the Landers to do something. Let's move along.